Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good evening.
Walaikum salam. I just increased the volume.
My name is Abdul Hakim bin Muhammad Azmi. I'm from College Professional Marasli Iskandar. Thank you for joining in our interview today. Okay, before we start, can you introduce yourself? What's your name?
I am Sarari Azam. I am from Bangladesh. Now I am studying in International Islamic University, Malaysia. In Bachelorate ICT and first semester, first year.
Okay. Okay, let's begin with the first question.
Okay.
How was the English language spread and developed in your country over time?
If I'm thinking when English arrived in Bangladesh, I think it's during British collaboration period, like 18th century maybe. It was initially used for administrative and official purposes. Over time, it spread into education, business, and among with elite. After that, we got our independent and our official language is Bangla. And English also play a crucial and important part in our country for global significance and continue use in higher education and administrative. After that, we were widely taught that in our school and university. Now it's growing in our country. I think that's all.
For the question number 2, what role does English play in education, business, and daily communication in your country?
First one, in education sector, English play a crucial and dramatically big part in our education system, especially in higher education and university level, like engineering, medicine, doctorate, and ICT. Many academic research and journalism also involved in English. And business sector, they are primarily using for multinational company, reporting for trading, international trade, and business strategy. And daily communication, we are not using English daily communication because that is not important part. We are using our Bangla tongue, that is our mother language. But when we are going for education is or like journalism or newspaper, they are using this type of stuff for modern life, like urban areas. I think that's
Okay, thank you. Okay, for the third question, how often do you use English to interact with people from other countries? And how important is it as a common language?
if I'm thinking like I'm from Bangladeshi and many Bangladeshi, especially those in business, academic or travel, they are using English frequently used to interact with other people from other country. It's absolutely play a vital role to common language for international communication, allowing Bangladeshi to participate in global collaboration. And also like me, I came here. If I don't know English, then I can't conversation with you. I think this also important and common thing for me to know English properly.
Yes. Okay. All right. For the fourth question, what are some challenges you face when using English to communicate with non-native speakers?
Like especially when I face first problem is pronunciation differences, because every country there is a different pronunciation, different variety, so you need to know what type of word they are using for that accent. So I think that's the first one. And another is varying level of proficiency. Encountering people with vastly different level of English proficiency can make communication challenging. And another is cultural enormous, because every country have their own culture and the culture change their language by their own way. So if I am talking about like I am coming here your country, some of my Malaysian friends don't understand English properly because of my accent. So I think this also carrying a meaning of cultural differences.
Yes, I understand that. Okay, for the fifth question, in words like bottle or chair, how do you pronounce the unstressed syllables? Do you use a full vowel sounds? And can you show the example of the pronunciation?
Like unlisted syllables word like bottle and chair are often reduced. In like my one, we reduce the vowel almost drop entirely bottle. We are pronounce it bottle. And in chair, yeah, we are pronounced that way. And the chair vowel sound is especially closer to short ear rather than is full down. We just cut that one like chair. So the reduction of stick is not common in our country. It's also like carry every English expression. They are just cut vowel or alphabet, which is not necessary in that word.
Oh, I
I think
see.
it's just a simple thing.
All right. For the sixth question, the th sounds in words like think and this can be difficult for some speakers. Do you pronounce them as t and d, or do you use another sound? Can you show some example?
TS sound are indeed challenging for many Bangladeshi speaker because it's not exist in our Bengali word. So a
Oh,
common tendency, so we just substitute them with T and D respectively. Because in our country, in Bengali word, there is not a nothing available in B. So we just use it B. Like think might be pronounced, our time is think. Like we just
oh,
cut the ace there. And this might be pronounced like a this. We just replace th with d.
oh,
So yeah, sometimes speaker might also use f and b sound substantially. Jack, I previously say that some of our speaker just try to use correctly b and b in our language, who are just came from like born here but grew up in other country. They are properly used that. But who is born in our country and grew up also in our country, they are just leave that word and we just replace that with a b and b like this.
oh, okay, I see. All right. For the last question,
There's a lots of differences.
yeah, they're very different from normal English, right?
Yeah, I think there's not much different because of our Bengali word. We have 39 word, and there's a sum of word that's not available in English. Like you use the alphabet in a which is available in English. That's why you don't face that type of problem. But we have our own word like Bengali language, so we don't need
Oh,
to use English word for regular conversation like. Going to shopping like regular shopping market or going any kind of a conversation with your friend, that time we just use our local tongue. So that's why we are used to it to Bangalore, not used to it English. So whenever we try to conversation with you in English, that time we just replace that word with our own word speaking in our alphabet. That's why it's changing like that way.
okay. For the last question, in
Okay.
Bangladesh, some speakers replace the V sound with B, such as
Yeah.
very sound like berry. Do you notice this in your speech? And why do you think this happens?
Like previously, I say we are just replacing our word like B and B substitute in not noticeable character. Some English linguists dialogue. Berry and berry is prime example. This happened because B sound is absent in Bengali word. There is nothing spell. We just use this B. The closest equivalent sound in Bangla is B. Speaker regularly transfer that sound with speaker in English. To classify exam how you speak a native speaker, we just try to pronounce it at a second language. While some speaker might maybe the situation is tough. Hard for them to spell that is correctly, but we
Oh,
used to it. That's why I'm saying every country they have their own accent to use that thing. So I think that's why they be different, and I think the any country of their this own way to change that alphabet. They're like that way. I think that's the way.
oh, I see. Thank you very much for joining this interview. And that's all for me. Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Good afternoon, Mr. Franzo. I'm Shamil Irfan, a student from College Professional Marasa Iskandar, Malaysia. So thank you for making your time to join with me for our interview session today. So before we begin, can you introduce briefly about yourself and your education level?
Okay, so my name is Francis. You can call me Franzu, and I'm living in the Philippines, Cebu, Philippines. And I am a third year college student and currently working as a part time ESL teacher.
So I will begin with the first question.
Okay.
So, how has English language spread and developed in your country over time?
English language. The English language in the Philippines is a very complex one. So it started during the American colonial period. It started during the American colonial period. It marked as a significant turning point in the Philippines' linguistic landscape. It became a medium of instruction in schools, displacing other languages such as the primary language of education. And this widespread exposure to English led to its adoption by a wider segment of the population, particularly in the urban areas in the Philippines.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Franzo. Moving on to next question. What role does English play in education, business, or daily communication in your country?
English plays a very significant role here in the Philippines, in our country, whether it's in education, in business, or in communication. It helps us to communicate with other countries and build connections from it. Like businesses and education, also jobs from the outside from the country, and yeah, like that.
Okay. Next question. How often do you use English to interact with people from other country, and how important it is as a common language?
For me, I'm an ESL teacher, so I basically use English every day. When I'm going out, when I see some of my students, I greet them with simple gestures like hello, hi, and even in convenience stores, when I buy something, I say thank you. So thank you, you're welcome. And it is important because when you're speaking in English, it can help you. It helps you improve your skills in speaking, not just by speaking to foreigners, but to native speakers as well.
Okay. Next question. What are some challenges you face when using English to communicate with non-native speakers?
Some challenges. There's one challenge that is very hard for me. Is the language barrier, because they basically don't understand what I'm talking about. If, for example, I'm speaking in a sentence and they don't understand a word, so like I'm trying to explain it to them, what does it mean, something like that. But yeah, it's part of the learning process as well. It's kind of challenging, very challenging, because you need to explain it to them by being not in a rude way. Like, you need to explain it to them in a kind way so that they won't get offended. And like what I said earlier, speaking English every day helps you improve your speaking skill, especially when you're speaking to a foreigner or a non-native speaker.
Okay. The last three questions I will ask related to the phonological features in Philippines English.
Okay.
So, how do you pronounce words like banana or sofa? Do you use a full vowel sound in the unstressed syllable?
Banana. Is it a sofa?
Sofa.
Banana and sofa?
Yes.
Depends on the person, but for me, I pronounce it as banana and sofa.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Next question.
Okay.
The TH sound in words like think and this, how do you pronounce them Like the words think becomes think.
I
Like-
pronounce them as think with a th. Think.
TH.
Yes.
Okay. Last question.
Okay.
In Philippine English, the F sound is sometimes replaced with P, as in fish becoming fish. Do you notice this in your speech?
Yeah, I noticed this, especially in wet markets. Like they're buying, like they're selling fish, like buy fish. So like, yeah, I noticed. It's usually in the wet markets area.
Do you think it is influenced by the localized language?
Yeah, I do believe it is influenced by the localized language. Yep.
So that's all for our interview today. Thank you for joining
Okay.
me, Mr. Franzu.
Thank you also, Mr. Samuel.
Assalamualaikum and good evening.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you.
For our interview today, may I ask what is your name
My name is Adnan Muhammad.
and where are you from?
I am originally from India. My ethnicity is Indian, but I have been living in Saudi Arabia.
Okay. What is your education level currently?
Currently, I'm studying in Faculty of Computer Science at IAU.
Okay. Without wasting any time, we will start with our interview.
Oh yeah.
Okay. For the first question is, how has the English language spread and developed in your country over time?
English has developed in Saudi due to many reasons such as globalization, education, tourism, and trade. Especially right now, Saudi Arabia is trying to boost tourism and trade, and therefore English is a must to communicate with international people. And right now, Saudi Arabia is trying to teach English at a very young age at Arabic schools.
Okay, so next, what role does English play in education, business, or daily communication in your country?
English plays a very huge role right now in Saudi because since Saudi understood that in order to communicate with international people, English has to be taught to younger students in Saudi, and therefore global language right now, and that's the main reason we are able to communicate here in this interview. They are trying their level best to promote English language in all the sectors, and since they are trying to improve their tourism and trade, technology, healthcare facilities, and since a lot of international people have been coming over to Saudi Arabia for the English is playing a huge role among them.
Okay, next, how often do you use English to interact with people from other countries, and how important is it as a common language?
For me, English is very important because I use English as a second language, and I have been studying in an international school in Saudi Arabia where a lot of different nationalities have been studying among them, like Chinese, Arabs. Even in Arab, you can find a lot of people such as Yemenis, Iraqis, Iranis, and therefore, I don't know most of their languages, and for me, it's very easy to easily communicate in English.
Okay, I see. Our next question is, what are some challenges that you face when you using English to communicate with non-native speakers?
It depends on certain people. For example, the non-native people in my well fluent, they have been very young age, like from the younger grades. But if you go and speak with the native Arab people, like the older generations, they are much weaker in pronouncing English words, and their accent is much higher in Arabic, and therefore it's very hard to understand their pronunciation.
Okay, so next,
Yeah.
in Saudi Arabia, English is spoken in different ways depending on a person's background and education. So, how would you describe your own way of speaking English? And do you think it's influenced by Arabic pronunciation?
Yes, since like the previous question I have answered, it depends on much of the people in Saudi Arabia. Like the newer generation, since they have social media, they use smartphones and they, watch podcasts, movies, games, and they which has English subtitles or English, so, and therefore they tend to learn English at a very young age, even through they might have not learned in their school. But unlike the older generation, which are not consuming English content, they are much weaker in pronouncing English, and therefore I feel that is a huge. And since I was brought up in Indian community and also the Arabian culture, I feel that a lot of my pronunciation has been influenced by them.
Okay, so our next question is that English has many sounds that don't exist in Arabic. And
Yeah.
were there any particular words that were difficult for you to learn?
For me, the P sound was difficult at the starting because in Arabic we don't have P sound, the P letter in the Arabic alphabet. So, for example, we don't say petrol, we just say petrol, petrol. A lot of people just say petrol instead of saying petrol, and therefore some sounds such as like P was a bit difficult for me to learn because I was at a very early age used to communicate with other people in English, and therefore their way of pronunciation has influenced me at an early age.
In Saudi Arabia, English
Yeah.
is in schools, workplace, and daily life in different ways. And where do you usually speak English? And do you adjust your way of speaking depending on the situation?
Okay. Yes. Um. Yeah. English is used in all of the sectors currently in Saudi Arabia, but in schools it's much easier with students since the teachers and the students are much more fluent in speaking English. But when I go to workplace, like for example, the shops, like the Arab shops, they might have not know much of the Arabic knowledge. I mean, the English knowledge, the way to use vocabulary or the grammar while speaking, and therefore it's way harder for me to grasp what they are trying to say. On the other places, if I go to a more English pronounced place such as offices, it's much easier since they have a well background in speaking English.
Okay, so that's all for our question in the interview today. Thank you for joining us. Uh,
Welcome.
and
Okay.
Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Okay, walaikum salam, Mr. Kimi.
Uh, okay. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, brother. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Okay, thank you for making time for this interview. So, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Zubair Sulaiman. I was born in South Africa, originally from Cape Town. I currently reside in Qatar, where I work for the government as a quantity surveyor.
I see. Okay, thank you. So, right now I'm going to introduce myself, and my name is Muhammad Muiz Hakimi, and I'm from Malaysia, and currently I'm studying in Mara Professional College in Perak, in Malaysia. So, the the main motive of our interview today is how English came to your country actually. So
Okay.
are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. So how has the English language spread and developed in your country over time, Mr. Zubey?
So, our, my country, South Africa, is predominantly English speaking. Although the country has got 9 national languages, English is the main language. The original language of South Africa was not English. If we talk about, let's say, in the early 1900s, if I remember the history, um, the main language was the language of the Khoisan, and Khoisan was the original people, the indigenous people of South Africa, namely Cape Town. And the way the language came in was through the British. So if you look at the history, the British is the country that colonized South Africa. about in the early 1900s, and they controlled South Africa, and they brought settlers from the UK, from Britain to come and settle. And this is how the language spread. That's the main reason and main factors that influenced how the English language first came to South Africa.
I see. And then for the next question is, what role does English play in education, business, or daily communication in your country?
So English is, like I said, English is the main language. The everything is done in English. English is the first language. It's the language that we study in. It's the language that we learn in. It's the language we communicate in for business. So English is a very, very important part of South African heritage and the day-to-day South African doings. So the first language is English. The second language, which I'm not sure you're familiar with, it's called Afrikaans. So basically, also going back in history, it's when the Dutch colonized South Africa. They brought Dutch missionaries, and this is how we formed the language called Afrikaans. So that's the second language. The third language you'll get to is the African language, which is called Xhosa and Zulu, Tswana. So those are part of the 9 official languages. But English is the number one means of communication.
I see, I see. So for the next question, you often use English to interact with people from other countries. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, 100%. So that's
Uh,
our means of communication, primary means of communication.
and yeah, how important is it as a common language, English?
Very, very important. I think from my side, not just in South Africa, in the world. I'm currently now in Qatar, and Qatar is the main language spoken here as well to communicate. I mean, even the Qatari, which speaks predominantly English. So the benefit for me knowing English from my home country is priceless because I'm able to use it. I mean, we're speaking in English now. When you Malay, you speak Malay. I'm South African. I speak Afrikaans, which is you don't understand. But importantly, we can communicate in English.
I see. Yeah, that's true. Okay, and then for the next question is, what are some challenges you face when you use English to communicate with non-native speakers?
Yeah, it is quite difficult for non-native speakers. The main, and I don't know if this is even, I mean, if this even means anything, but the difference is there's you can speak English, but you can have a different accent as well. So the
Yes,
difficulty, which I found that my accent is not easily understood because I'm South African and I say things, I pronounce things in a different way. Even Malaysian. I mean, I have lots of Malaysian colleagues. So the way that the Malaysian will pronounce something and the way that I will pronounce, I think that it's a big challenge, you know?
that's right. We do have some mixing words too in English.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and then for the next question is, in South Africa, English is spoken in different ways depending on a person's background and education. How would you describe your own way of speaking English? Do you think it's influenced by South Africans pronunciation?
Definitely, 100%. Like I said in my previous comment, the way we pronounce things is way different. Like for instance, at the where I am in the Middle East now, I have to pronounce my ways in a way my words in a way that they would understand. So, and like I said, as my previous answer, it's challenging. It's challenging. I have to change it, to where I am in the world.
I see. Okay, thank you, Mr. Zube. And then for the next question is, English has many sounds that don't exist in South Africa. Were there any particular words that were difficult for you to learn?
No, I mean I grew up with English as my first language, so there are no difficult words at all. No.
I see. So, can you share some words uh, that you say the Afrikaans word, the Afrikaans language? Can you share some uh, one or two example of words?
So in the Afrikaans language, which is my second language, the Afrikaans language, if we let me give you a word that you would know. So in what the influence is from a Malaysian perspective, the word pisang means banana.
Yeah.
The word
Oh yeah.
pisang in Afrikaans, it's pisang. Banana is pisang in Afrikaans. Did you know that?
Oh no, I don't really know that actually.
That is how close the language is. So the Malaysian influenced a lot as well. Malaysian influence has a lot to do with specifically Cape Town, where many words, Malay words, has been used also in the Afrikaans language. So pisang is one of it. Pisang means banana.
Yeah.
So pisang in Afrikaans, pisang is an Afrikaans word, and the translation of it is banana. That's one. Another word in Afrikaans, I would say, is something called klein. Klein means small. So I
Oh.
don't know. It's not similar in Malaysia, but klein is similar to Dutch and similar to German. So klein will be
I,
small in German, and klein will be small in Dutch as well.
I see. Wow, that's very interesting.
If you Google, you will check Klein and Klein. That's just a different way of pronouncing it, but the meaning is the same.
I see. That's very, very interesting knowledge
Mm.
for me. And then for the last question is in South Africa, English is used in school, workplace, and daily life in different ways. Where do you usually speak English, and do you adjust your way of speaking depending on the situation?
So we speak English in the workplace. I speak English at the schools. We speak English in our homes. We would speak Afrikaans and English. The old generation, like my grandmother, I would speak Afrikaans too, because she was not English speaking. She was mainly Afrikaans speaking. So I would speak to her. But in the workplace, I have to admit, I had to change my English to be more prim and proper. You know what I mean? More
Yeah,
formal instead of being
yeah, yeah.
slang. So that's
Yep.
where I would change the English up when I'm in a work setting, work environment or professional environment.
So yeah, that's all for the question that I want to ask you for the
Nope.
interview. I really, really appreciate you much. So thank you so much, Mr. Zube, for spending
Nope.
time to do
Okay.
this.
Take care,
All
brother.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. See you then. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.